First contact folly. The crystalline spires of the Jaeri exploration vessel Luminous Seeker sparkled in the light of an unfamiliar star as it glided through the darkness of uncharted space. On the command deck, Captain Vexala stood with her forearms clasped behind her back, the bioluminescent patterns on her azure skin pulsing with excitement as she studied the mysterious object that had appeared on their long-range scanners. "Analysis complete, Captain," announced Science Officer Trell, her cranial tendrils twitching as data streamed directly into her neural processors. The vessel ahead appears to be of artificial origin, approximately 1.5 kilometers in length. Power signatures are minimal, suggesting it is dormant or abandoned. Captain Vexela's compound eyes gleamed with curiosity. The Jaeri Collective had encountered 17 sentient species during their 3 millennia of interstellar exploration, but all had been pre-spaceflight civilizations that the Collective had gently guided toward the stars. A derelict vessel of unknown origin represented something unprecedented, a spacefaring species they had not yet cataloged. "Magnify," she ordered, and the main view screen shimmered as it enhanced the image. The vessel that appeared before them was unlike anything in the Collective database. Where Jaeri ships were organic curves and crystalline lattices, this craft was angular and utilitarian. Its dark hull was scarred with micrometeorite impacts and bore unfamiliar markings, the most prominent being UNS Intrepid, emblazoned on what appeared to be the forward section. "Fascinating," Vexela whispered. "Absolutely fascinating." Security Chief Krav approached the command platform, his exoskeletal armor clicking softly with each step. "Captain, I must advise caution. The design appears to be military in nature. Those protrusions along the hull," he gestured with a clawed hand, "are consistent with weapon emplacements." "Speculation," dismissed Vexala with a flutter of her secondary arms. "We cannot assume aggressive intent based solely on design aesthetics. Our own exploratory vessels carry defensive capabilities." "Nevertheless," Krav persisted, "standard protocol for unknown vessels dictates remote scanning and probe deployment before direct contact." Science Officer Trell interrupted, her voice tinged with the harmonic overtones of excitement. "Captain, I've been running pattern analysis on the vessel's energy emissions. While power levels are minimal, they follow a structured sequence inconsistent with system degradation. I believe the ship may be in a hibernation state rather than abandoned." Vexela's bioluminescence pulsed faster. "Life signs." "Inconclusive," Trell replied. "If the vessel employs biological containment fields similar to our own, occupants could be in stasis. Alternatively, the crew may have evacuated, or they could be deliberately masking their presence," Krav finished grimly. Vexela considered her options, mandibles clicking softly as she weighed the potential discovery against the risks. The Collective would expect her to follow protocol, deploy probes, maintain distance, call for a specialized first contact team. It would be the prudent course of action. But the captain hadn't achieved her position by being prudent. "Prepare a boarding party," she announced, causing a ripple of surprise through the command deck. "I will lead it personally." "Captain," Krav objected immediately, "with all due respect, this contravenes at least 7 Collective directives regarding unknown vessels and potential first contact scenarios." Vexela turned her compound eyes toward her security chief. "Your concern is noted, Chief Krav. However, this vessel appears disabled. If there are survivors aboard, our ethical imperative to render assistance overrides standard protocol." It was a thin justification, and everyone on the command deck knew it. The real motivation was clear: the opportunity to make a historic discovery, to be the first Jaeri to document a new spacefaring civilization. "I will accompany you," Krav stated, not a request but a declaration, "with a full security complement." Vexela nodded, conceding this point. "Agreed. Additionally, I want Science Officer Trell, Xenobiologist Mira, and Engineer Zoll on the team. We depart in 20 time units. Maintain open communications with the luminous seeker at all times. As the boarding party made their preparations, Engineer Zoll voiced the question that hung in the recycled air of the preparation chamber. "What species do you think constructed it, Captain?" Vexella adjusted the environmental controls on her exploration suit. "Unknown. The design philosophy suggests a species with a different evolutionary path than ours. The angular construction, the emphasis on function over form. Perhaps they evolved in a high-gravity environment where efficiency of materials was paramount. Or a species that evolved in conflict," Krav added darkly, checking the charge on his defensive field generator. "Those are weapon emplacements, whatever the captain chooses to call them." The boarding shuttle, a teardrop-shaped craft of living metal and crystalline sensors, detached from the luminous seeker and glided silently toward the mysterious vessel. As they approached, the true scale of the ship became apparent, dwarfing their shuttle like a grazer beast beside a micro. "I've located what appears to be an entry point," Engineer Zoll announced, manipulating the shuttle's controls with practiced precision. A partially open bay on the ventral hull section. The shuttle slipped through the gap and into a cavernous space within the alien ship. Artificial gravity asserted itself as they passed through the environmental barrier, settling the shuttle gently onto the deck. Through the viewport, they could see rows of smaller craft, clearly designed for rapid deployment. "Those are combat vessels," Krav observed, his tone vindicated. "This is a warship." Vexella's inner eyelids flickered, the Ja'ari equivalent of a dismissive blink. Perhaps their culture simply developed different design aesthetics than ours. We cannot project our interpretations onto an unknown species. The boarding party cycled through the shuttle's airlock and emerged onto the deck of the alien vessel. Their suit lights activated automatically, cutting through the gloom with beams of soft blue luminescence. The atmosphere was breathable according to their sensors, but protocol dictated they remain suited until biological compatibility could be confirmed. "The air composition is remarkable," xenobiologist Mira observed, studying her handheld analyzer. "Oxygen-nitrogen mix with trace elements, similar to many life-bearing worlds, but the oxygen percentage is higher than most species would find comfortable." Engineer Zoll approached a nearby wall panel, his sensors extending to interface with the alien technology. Fascinating engineering. Primitive in some ways, they use physical circuitry rather than quantum entanglement, but elegant in its robustness. Multiple redundant systems, they build expecting failure or damage, Krav noted. They moved deeper into the vessel, following what appeared to be main corridors. The ship's interior was utilitarian, function clearly prioritized over aesthetic considerations. Surfaces were metal or composite materials, pathways were logical and efficient, and everything was built to last. Science Officer Trull cataloged everything, her neural processors, recording terabytes of data with each passing moment. "These markings," she said, pointing to symbols on the walls, "repeat at regular intervals. Directional indicators, perhaps. Or warnings," Krav added, ever the pessimist. After 20 minutes of careful exploration, they reached what appeared to be a command center. Unlike the organic, flowing design of Ja'ari control spaces, this room was compact and clearly designed for efficiency. Workstations were arranged in concentric rings around a central raised platform where a single chair stood. Power systems appear to be in standby mode, Engineer Zoll reported, examining a console. But the infrastructure is intact. Vexella moved to the central chair, studying its design. Interesting. A hierarchical command structure, perhaps. This appears to be positioned for a single authority figure to oversee operations. "Captain," Krav called from a different section of the room. "These display configurations suggest defensive systems. Many of them. This species built for war." Xenobiologist Mira had discovered another terminal and was carefully attempting to access it. After several attempts, the screen flickered to life, displaying rows of unfamiliar symbols. "I've isolated what appears to be a basic informational database," she announced. "Our translation matrix is attempting to establish linguistic parameters. The others gathered around as streams of alien text scrolled across the screen. The translation program struggled but gradually began to decipher the unfamiliar language. They call themselves humans. Mira read aloud. Evolved on a planet designated Earth. High-gravity world compared to our standards. Oxygen-rich atmosphere. She continued reading, her voice growing concerned. They have recorded history of warfare dating back thousands of years. Nearly continuous conflict. A war species, Krav muttered. That explains the ship design. Engineer Zoll had moved to another station. I'm accessing engineering logs. Their propulsion technology differs from ours, but is remarkably advanced. They use a form of gravitational manipulation we haven't encountered before. Science Officer Trell was scanning the bridge with increasing confusion. Something doesn't add up. If this ship was abandoned or the crew incapacitated, where are they? There are no signs of emergency evacuation or biological remains. Security Chief Krav suddenly went rigid, his sensor arrays sweeping the room with heightened intensity. Captain, we need to leave immediately. This entire setup feels wrong. Explain, Vexilla demanded, her bioluminescence pulsing with irritation at the interruption of their discovery. Krav pointed to tiny, almost imperceptible objects embedded in the ceiling corners. These are observation devices, and the corridor layouts we traversed, they are designed to channel movement in specific directions. This entire ship is a tactical construct designed to control boarding parties. Captain Vexella began to respond when suddenly, the bridge blazed with light. The dim emergency illumination was replaced by bright, white light that revealed the command center in all its functional glory. Simultaneously, screens around the bridge activated, displays flickering to life with scrolling data. A new voice spoke from all around them, deep, resonant, and utterly alien. Attention unauthorized boarding party. You have entered a United Nations stellar Navy vessel without permission or invitation. The alien explorers froze as hidden compartments in the wall slid open with precision, revealing what could only be weapon systems. On one screen, they could see the corridor they had traversed. Armed figures in formidable armor were moving swiftly toward the bridge. Do not move, the voice continued. You are surrounded. Captain Vexella's compound eyes darted frantically around the room, searching for an escape route, but found only the unwavering gaze of surveillance systems that had been watching their every move since they'd entered the ship. The trap had been sprung. What had seemed like a scientific opportunity was revealing itself as potentially the biggest mistake in Ja'eri exploration history. This, Krav said quietly, is why we have protocols. Humanity's terms. Hidden doors slid open around the bridge of the UNS Intrepid, revealing compartments that the Ja'eri scanning technology had somehow failed to detect. From these concealed spaces emerged figures that could only be the ship's crew, humans. They wore form-fitting uniforms in dark gray with colored piping that hinted at some organizational system, and each carried what were unmistakably weapons, regardless of what species had designed them. The aliens' translators struggled to process the rapid communications passing between the humans, but the meaning was clear from their disciplined movements. Within seconds, the boarding party found themselves surrounded, the humans maintaining a precisely calculated distance, close enough for immediate action, far enough to avoid being reached by any of the Ja'eri's four limbs. A taller human with distinctive facial markings, parallel scars across the left cheek, stepped forward. Unlike the others, this human's uniform bore additional symbols on the shoulders and chest. I am Captain Sarah Chen of the United Nations, Stellar Navy Vessel Intrepid, the human announced, voice modulated to carry authority without aggression. You have boarded a sovereign military vessel without authorization. Identify yourselves and your purpose. Captain Vexella straightened to her full height, her bioluminescent patterns shifting to project calm confidence despite her racing thoughts. I am Captain Vexella of the Ja'eri exploration vessel Luminous Seeker. We detected your ship operating at minimal power levels and received no response to our communications. We boarded with the intention of rendering assistance to what we believed was a vessel in distress. Captain Chen's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in her eyes. A curious definition of assistance that involves accessing our secure systems and database files. On the main view screen, a new image appeared. The luminous seeker, now bracketed by targeting indicators. Smaller craft had emerged from the Intrepid's launch bays and taken up positions around the HFY vessel. Your ship is currently surrounded, Chen informed them matter-of-factly. It will not be harmed if you cooperate. Through their still-open communication channel, Vexella could hear the alarmed reports from her vessel. Captain, unknown craft has surrounded us. They emerged from hidden bays in the larger vessel. Their power signatures were completely masked until activation. Security Chief Krav moved slightly, drawing the immediate attention of every human warrior, their weapons tracking his movement with unsettling precision. I recommend against any sudden gestures, Captain Chen advised, her tone almost conversational. Our Marines are trained to respond decisively to potential threats. We intended no hostility, Vexella insisted, her translator struggling to convert the complex harmonics of HFY emotional language. We are explorers, scientists who board unknown military vessels without permission, Chen observed. She made a small gesture, and one of the humans approached with a device that projected a holographic display. It showed the boarding party's entire journey through the ship, every scan they had performed, every system they had accessed. Your actions suggest reconnaissance more than scientific curiosity, Chen continued, particularly your focus on our defensive systems, propulsion technology, and command protocols. Engineer Zoll couldn't contain his professional curiosity despite the tense situation. How did you mask your presence from our scans? Our technology should have detected life signs aboard. A slight smile touched Captain Chen's face. Adaptation to your scanning methods. We've had time to study your approach to new encounters. The implication hung in the air like a predator. The humans had known about the HFY before this meeting. They had prepared specifically for this encounter. How long have you been observing us? Vexilla asked, her inner eyelids flickering rapidly in distress. Long enough, Chen replied. Your collective has been expanding through this sector for decades. We've watched how you approach new species, how you incorporate them into your network. We decided it was time to test how you would approach a species that might be your technological equal or superior. You used your ship as bait, Krav stated, professional respect coloring his tone despite their predicament. Captain Chen nodded. And you took it, violating at least 7 of your own protocols in the process, according to our understanding of HFY exploration directives. The revelation stunned the alien party into momentary silence. Not only had humans been watching them, but they had also studied HFY protocols and predicted exactly how Vexella would choose to ignore them. A new human entered the bridge, older than the others with silver streaks in its cranial fur. The other humans straightened perceptibly at this arrival. Admiral on deck, one announced. At ease, the newcomer said, studying the aliens with undisguised fascination. I am Admiral Takashi Yamamoto, 3rd Fleet Command. Welcome aboard the Intrepid, though I must say your method of arrival leaves much to be desired. Vexella's translator rendered the Admiral's tone as containing an element of humor despite the serious situation. Admiral, Vexella began, attempting to salvage something from the diplomatic disaster unfolding. I must emphasize that our intentions were peaceful. If we have violated your territorial boundaries, we offer sincere apologies. Admiral Yamamoto exchanged a glance with Captain Chen before responding. An apology issued at gunpoint lacks a certain sincerity. Wouldn't you agree, Captain Vexala? Nevertheless, let's move beyond this. Unfortunate first impression. With another subtle gesture, the Admiral indicated for the human warriors to lower their weapons, though they remained alert. Perhaps we should continue this discussion in more comfortable surroundings, Yamamoto suggested. Our conference room is better suited for diplomatic exchange than a combat bridge. Your vessel will remain under observation, but we will establish communication with your acting commander to assure them of your safety." The boarding party was escorted through corridors they hadn't previously explored, noting more humans going about their duties, some pausing to observe the aliens with expressions their translators couldn't adequately interpret. The conference room, when they reached it, was a stark contrast to the utilitarian design of the rest of the ship. Comfortable seating, subdued lighting, and what appeared to be artistic representations of celestial phenomena on the walls. Once seated, Admiral Yamamoto regarded the aliens thoughtfully. "You're wondering why we staged this encounter rather than approaching your collective through conventional diplomatic channels." It wasn't a question, but Vexella nodded her assent. "Humanity has a rather cautious approach to first contact scenarios," the Admiral explained. "We've observed 17 species make contact with your collective. In each case, the Jaeri discovered a pre-spaceflight civilization, offered technological assistance, and eventually incorporated them into your network. A benevolent pattern, certainly, but one that establishes the Jaeri as the senior partner in every relationship." Science Officer Troll's cranial tendrils twitched. "We guide emerging species to prevent them from making the mistakes we once made. The collective's protocols developed from our own painful history." "Noble intentions," Captain Chen acknowledged, "but ultimately, it creates a power imbalance that benefits the collective. Every species you've guided has become dependent on Jaeri technology, Jaeri protection, and Jaeri governance models." Admiral Yamamoto leaned forward. "Humanity chose a different path. When we detected your expansion into neighboring systems 30 Earth years ago, we decided to observe before revealing ourselves. What we discovered was concerning enough that we maintained our isolation while developing countermeasures to your technological approaches." Countermeasures. Engineer Zoll couldn't hide his professional interest. "Your scanning technology relies on quantum phase detection of biological signatures," Yamamoto replied. "Once understood, it could be shielded against. Your communication protocols use predictable subspace frequencies. Your ship's neural organic interfaces can be disrupted with precisely calibrated electromagnetic pulses." Each revelation landed like a physical blow. These weren't vague observations, but precise technical details that should have been among the collective's most guarded secrets. "You've been studying us for decades," Vexilla realized aloud. "Yet we've never detected a hint of your civilization." "That was by design," Chen explained. "Our expansion has been deliberately cautious, avoiding your established transit routes and observation posts. We've developed technology specifically to operate undetected by your sensing methods." "But why?" Xenobiologist Mira asked, genuine confusion in her harmonic tones. "The collective has never shown hostility to new species. We seek peaceful coexistence and mutual advancement." Admiral Yamamoto's expression softened slightly. "On your terms, always on your terms. Humanity has a long and complicated history with empire-building civilizations, Dr. Mira. Even benevolent ones. We decided that when we finally met, it would be as equals, not as another species to be guided into your collective." "And now?" Vexilla asked quietly. "Your ship surrounds mine. My crew is effectively your hostage. Is this your version of peaceful first contact?" The Admiral's laugh was unexpected, a strange vocalization that the translators rendered imperfectly. "Captain Vexella, if we wanted hostages, we would have taken your ship the moment you entered this system. This demonstration was necessary to establish clarity about our relative positions. You see," Captain Chen elaborated, "we've studied how the Jaeri respond when encountering species of roughly equivalent technology. There are no such encounters in your historical records. Every first contact in your archive involves your species as the advanced party. We needed to know how you would react to technological parity or superiority." "And our response?" Krav asked, professional curiosity overcoming his caution. "Informative," Yamamoto replied. "You bypassed your own protocols when presented with an opportunity for advantage. You attempted to access restricted systems despite claiming humanitarian intentions. Your collective's expansion protocols appear to operate on the assumption of technological superiority. The Admiral stood, moving to a wall display that flickered to life at his approach. A galactic map appeared, showing JRE territory in blue, with a previously unseen red section bordering it. This is United Nations space, 37 star systems, 11 colony worlds, and 17 deep space installations that your collective never detected. We've been your neighbors for generations. The revelation stunned the alien party into silence. The implications were staggering. Not just one vessel, but an entire civilization had developed alongside them, completely undetected. What happens now? Vexilla finally asked. Now, Admiral Yamamoto said, his expression warming. Now we talk. As equals, your boarding party will be returned to your vessel unharmed. Our diplomatic corps has prepared a comprehensive first contact package for your collective's leadership. Captain Chen added, we propose establishing formal diplomatic relations between humanity and the JRE collective, including technology exchange agreements, mutual defense protocols, and non-expansion treaties. Non-expansion? Trell questioned. The collective has a habit of absorbing new civilizations, Yamamoto explained. We have no interest in being absorbed, nor do we wish to find ourselves in competition for the same resources and worlds. Vexilla's inner eyelids flickered rapidly as she processed the implications. This wasn't the typical first contact scenario, where the collective set the terms. These humans were proposing a relationship between equals, something unprecedented in JRE history. I cannot negotiate such terms without authorization from the Collective Council, she said finally. Of course not, the Admiral agreed smoothly. But you can deliver our message and the rather compelling evidence that humanity is not a species to be underestimated or patronized. As they prepared to return to their vessel, Engineer Zoll approached Captain Chen with professional curiosity overcoming his caution. Your technology, the way you mask your presence, your propulsion systems, your defensive capabilities, they operate on principles we haven't encountered before. Chen smiled. A gesture their translators suggested indicated amusement rather than aggression. Different evolutionary paths lead to different technological solutions. Engineer Zoll. Your collective developed neural organic interfaces and quantum entanglement communications. Humanity focused on gravitational manipulation and electromagnetic countermeasures. We could learn much from each other, Zoll suggested. That's the idea, Chen replied. But as partners, not as teacher and student. As they boarded their shuttle to return to the Luminous Seeker, Captain Vexilla found herself accompanied by Admiral Yamamoto. A final thought for your council, Captain, he said quietly. Humanity has encountered other spacefaring species beyond your collective's territory. Some share our concerns about your expansion methods. Some have technologies even we find impressive. The galaxy is larger and more complex than your collective has assumed. The shuttle door sealed, leaving Vexilla and her team to contemplate this final revelation as they returned to their vessel. What had begun as a routine exploration mission had transformed into a pivotal moment in JRE history. The day they discovered they were not the most advanced civilization among the stars. Aboard the Luminous Seeker, the crew gathered in stunned silence as Captain Vexilla transmitted her preliminary report to the Collective Council. The transmission would take days to reach the homeworld, and the response would be equally delayed. What do you think the Council will decide? Science Officer Trell asked quietly as they watched the UNS Intrepid glide gracefully into position nearby, no longer pretending to be dormant or disabled. Vexilla's bioluminescence pulsed with thoughtful patterns. For the first time in our history, the collective faces a species that can match, perhaps exceed, our capabilities. A species that has observed us without our knowledge and prepared specifically to counter our advantages. They could have destroyed us, Security Chief Krav observed. Instead, they offered diplomacy. On their terms, Vexilla noted. As equals, Engineer Zoll corrected. Their technology. It's different from ours, but the principles, the innovation. I've never seen anything like it. We could learn so much. Captain Vexela gazed at the human vessel through the viewport, its sleek form no longer appearing primitive but dangerous and elegant in its efficiency. The Council will adapt. They must. The age of Jaeri guidance may be ending, but perhaps something more interesting is beginning. On the bridge of the Intrepid, Admiral Yamamoto watched the alien vessel with satisfaction. First contact accomplished, Captain Chen. Your assessment. They'll report back to their collective exactly as we anticipated, Chen replied. The demonstration of our technological capabilities will force them to reevaluate their expansion policies. And the greater revelation? The Admiral asked. Chen smiled. They haven't begun to process that yet. The idea that there are multiple spacefaring civilizations beyond their knowledge, some with alliances to humanity. That will keep their council debating for cycles. Is it true? Asked a young lieutenant nearby. Are there other species out there who've allied with us? Yamamoto's expression remained carefully neutral. The Jaeri will spend years trying to answer that question, Lieutenant. Their uncertainty is our security. He turned back to the viewport. Humanity learned long ago that the best defense isn't always the strongest weapon. Sometimes it's simply ensuring that potential adversaries can never be certain of what you're capable of. As the luminous seeker prepared to depart, its engines glowing with the soft blue light of Jaeri technology, the humans watched in silence. The first official contact between humanity and the collective had been established, not as mentor and student, not as discoverer and discovered, but as equals in a galaxy that had suddenly become much more complex for both civilizations. The game had changed, and humanity had written the new rules.